Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. And loud and clear.
So, first
Help me,
off,
because my ears are bad.
The film was phenomenal, and it just made me question your view on the future missions to Mars. How, because you've known a lot of astronauts, do you think the personalities of astronauts in long-term space travel will have to be different because it will affect them differently, and it'll affect their families differently because they'll be gone so long? Will their personalities have to be different, and will they have to be single?
I've got more from. Will there, because the long duration flights, their personalities have to be different?
Right. Or will they not have to have families?
You know, the guys you saw in that picture, not just me, but the rest of the guys, the Alan Beans and the Dick Gordons and the others that were in there, you know, at that stage in our life, we were invincible, invisible, and bulletproof. We were all aviators, naval aviators. It didn't make any difference. Man, there wasn't anything we couldn't do. And if you want someone to go to the moon, back to the moon, even better than that, if you want someone to go on to Mars, you're not looking for a wuss. You are looking for someone who knows they can do it. And I'll give you my own thoughts. You are looking for someone who knows they can do it better than it's ever been done before. I always looked at myself as somewhat of an underdog, always the youngest guy. As I said, didn't go to test pilot, didn't do that. I had to have command of that last mission. And God bless Dick for giving it to me. Because I had to prove something. I had to prove to myself that I was good enough. And I don't care where we go in the future, and we are going back to the moon, and we are going to go do things that have never been done before, and they're all going to be risky, and we are going to go to Mars, and they're going to be long duration flights, and we're going to have the same kind of unfortunate circumstances with our families, leaving them for long distance, getting focused. If we weren't focused, if we weren't focused, we could not have done the job. And the casualty of that focus was our families. Yes, sir.
And on that note, was it hard for you to get the rest of your family behind the project, or were they leery about having their lives on the film shown?
Stay up there, Mark.
Sorry.
He's got better ears than I got.
You were saying that was it hard to convince your family to?
Yeah, the rest of your family to be involved.
The rest of your family to be involved in your journey.
Well, you know, we were all taking, one day you're just a snotty-nosed young naval aviator with a few carrier landings under your belt. And the next day you're an American hero and you haven't done a damn thing. And your family gets caught up in it as well. You know, my family was a 9-month-old daughter and a wife at that point in time. And, you know, she's proud, excited, everything else. We had no idea what was in store for us. And the deeper we got into it, I think in the film, I think there's something in there. My former wife said, if you think going to the moon is hard, you ought to try staying home. That may be the testimonial to the family's position. If you think going to the moon is hard, you ought to try staying home. We never gave that much consideration. Did we have time? And, you know, I can give you all kinds of excuses. But we didn't. That's the whole point. And the casualties were significant.
But just a quick follow-up, did your ex-wife resist having her story told during this film, on the film, or were they willing to participate?
Were they willing to? Oh, I think so. You saw both my former wife, my present wife. They were, you know, my present wife, you know, she came into being after the book was written, after all this happened. And so my former wife was very much obviously a part of the story we're trying to relate to people. They're very good friends. My second wife has, you know, she doesn't live in the past. She doesn't live in the past of Eugene Cernan. She lives in the present. That's her life. Now, the only people who are really upset are the 9 grandkids I got because they weren't in the movie enough. They had a lot to say. So how about any, and I don't want to take any more of your time. Another question to, yes, sir. Oh.
All right. Dick Slayton, when he made the choice between you instead of Dick Gordon, can you expand upon that at all, on how that came about?
The question was about who was going to fly Apollo 17. I know Dick's not in this room, but I've said this to him before, and I said it in the book. What's interesting, few of you may have read my book. It's the same story, it's the same person, it's the same last man on the moon, but if you read the book and watch the movie, you're looking at it from two different directions. It's amazing to me. The book and the movie say the same thing, but they're not at all alike. And in the book specifically, I said, if I were Dick Slayton, my boss at the time, our boss at the time, and he had a crew, Dick's crew. Dick, who was an outstanding aviator, test pilot, broke speed records in F-8 Crusaders, had experience, flew in Germany. And as he said, he had an ace in all, he had a drum card. He had Jack Schmidt, the geologist, on his crew. And they had been training, backing up Apollo 15, and flights were spread out. They had plenty of time to recycle and fly 17. We were rotating every 3 flights, but there was still no guarantee we'd get the mission. And I say it in the book, and I truly, honestly believe it to this day. If I were Dick Slayton, I would have picked Dick Gordon's crew. There was absolutely no reason to have picked me to command that crew, wherein we would have to change one of the crew members. Keep Dick's crew in place. Very capable guys. Keep them in place and fly them. Because when I got assigned a backup commander of Apollo 14, backing up Alan Shepard, that still didn't guarantee me a flight, because I went to Dick earlier on and had a chance maybe to fly on the moon a little earlier, but from the right seat. As I said a minute ago, I needed to prove this out to myself that I was good enough. I said, no, I want to take my chance on getting the command. Dick told me, he said, number 1, there may not be a flight. Number 2, there may not be a seat on it available. Number 3, you may not get it if there is a seat. You have absolutely no guarantee at all. So quite frankly, particularly when I crashed that helicopter, whew, you know, I don't know how many of you really know Tom Stafford. I flew with him twice. He called me up on the telephone, and I've never heard words like that in my entire life. They ended up, if you pardon me, with dumb shit. And Dick had every reason to pick Dick had every reason to pick Dick Gordon, and I almost expected him to do that. And then I had a little discussion with Dick about flying with Jack. Let me preface this. Jack did an outstanding job. It was the right decision to put a geologist on the moon. I had to tell Joe Engel, X-15 pilot, he wasn't going to fly. And I argued with Dick a little bit about that. He looked at me and said, you don't understand. Apollo 17 is yours. No, he said, first of all, you don't understand. Jack Schmidt is going to fly Apollo 17. Now, it's your flight if you want it. It's sort of a no-brainer. And so we ended up, and quite frankly, I think it worked out very good. Jack was a microgeologist in a way. I looked at the big picture, and I like to think we did a pretty good job of it. But, you know, that's how that all evolves. And when I talk about a fantasy, unfortunately, we killed guys along the way. And some of those guys that died in airplane crashes and in the Apollo 1 fire or wherever along the way very well could have commanded flights on the moon. You know, if a few of the other guys, my colleagues in the program, wanted to fly again, I probably wouldn't have flown again. That's why it's a fantasy. I flew 3 times, and it shouldn't. I mean, if you tried, when I graduated college, if someone tried to write a novel, a fiction, about what was going to happen to this guy, forget the name Eugene Cernan, what was going to happen to this kid with a dream during World War II, what was going to happen to him, it never would have been published. Would have been too incredibly, I mean, who would believe all that stuff? I mean, it just was nothing. I really, let me just end this because I think Deke gave me the supreme test. Unfortunately, most of you have probably never had a chance to meet Alan Shepard. Hell of a great guy. And when you broke through that ice shield that he had around him, as I had an opportunity to do, he became one of my best friends. But he's also a SOB to try and please and back up. And I think Deke gave me that assignment as backup crew of Apollo 17 as a supreme test. If you can back up Al Shepard and make him happy, one more thing. The time I thought I really ripped my knickers, I went in Al when he got to flight. I was assigned a backup crew, and I said, Al, I want you to know our backup crew is going to do everything to get you guys ready for flight. And by the way, if one of the guys in your crew doesn't make it, my guys will be ready to fly in their place. And by the way, if something happens to you, and all of a sudden that face goes, I mean, 10 years he waited to fly again after that first flight. If something and you can't fly, I said, I'll be ready and able to take your place. And boy, it's like this. And I said, I'm going to quit with this one. I said, and Alan, sir, as an admiral, I mean, that's sort of the way he was at that point in time. I said, if you can't fly, I will be able to fly, and I'll be able to do the job better than you. And I stood in front of his desk like I was at a court-martial. And then I smelled it, and that man got up, stuck out his hand, and said, Gino, we are going to have a great time. Apollo 14 was the other flight that I never flew. And I think that was a turning point in my life in the space program. Folks, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.